first one-man show of works by caricature artist Thomas Fluharty, As I Was Going Along, was held in Bloomington Center for the Arts in Minnesota, USA on July 20, August 24, 2018. It represented the last 5 years of Thomas Fluharty's life as an artist, except for a few pieces. 2013 marked the beginning of his pop culture work, dog imagery, and blue line of work. His work was featured on covers for Mad Magazine, Der Spiegel, Time Magazine, Weekly Standard, over 100 covers, People Magazine, Entertainment Weekly, Sports Illustrated, The Village Voice, Coca-Cola, and the New York Times. Fluharty's work received national recognition from the Society of Illustrators in New York and Los Angeles and Communication Arts Illustration Annuals. He won gold medal from Spectrum Fantastical Art for his depiction of Hillary Clinton. Fluharty loves working with students all over the world, teaching online with schoolism.com, where he teaches drawing and painting. Run Global Media Channel met with the Guru of Caricature and asked him questions which helped to understand his perspective as celebrity caricature artist and the person. Tom, how did it happen that you became an artist?
I've been an artist ever since I was a little kid and just drew, painted. It's just the thing that came naturally to me.
So there was no question what you will be when you grow up?
Yeah, there was no hope to be anything else, basically. This was it. This was all I could really do. Yeah.
But what else did you like in life? What could you become if you didn't become an artist?
I'm not really sure what I could become. I think now I could think about things and apply myself well to become something other than an artist, but I wouldn't do it well. I wouldn't do it well, good enough, like this is what I know the most and that I'm the best at. So the fact that I love what I do helps me.
Your exhibition, As I Was Going Along, starts with your self-portrait. Why did you use symbols of former Soviet Union in this portrait? What message does your self-portrait carry? And what year did you paint it?
Right, I painted this probably maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not exactly sure the date, but the idea behind the painting is I needed to do a self-portrait and to give a nod, sort of a nod or a shout out to my daughter whom we adopted from Russia. I just put the hat that I had purchased while I was in Russia on the streets. I found this KGB hat. The guy said it was authentic, and so I bought it because I found it to be an interesting piece of history. And so I bought it, not to support any of the ideals there, but just that it was a cool hat, so I just put it on my head to create a little more interest.
And what year did you go to Russia? When was it?
Yeah, we went to Russia in 2004. We adopted our daughter from Pskov, and she was 6 years old, and we traveled to Russia, to Pskov, and then we went to Moscow. I ended up in Moscow, which was a pretty cool trip.
And what motivated you to adopt a child from Russia?
My wife. Yeah, my wife, and I would say God was really working in our hearts to reach out to those unfortunate, less fortunate, and those that are fatherless, that don't have fathers and mothers, and to reach out and to give them what they don't have. So it was really birthed in my wife's heart. Christy is her name.
And how long did you stay in big cities in Moscow, which you mentioned?
I think
in
we
Moscow and Pskov and...
Right, we stayed there around 3 weeks. We had 3 weeks in Russia.
And what surprised you? What seemed interesting? And what seemed bad?
Yeah, interesting. So we'd never been to Russia before. One of the things that sort of really opened my eyes were open to the poverty there. So when we were out in the country, you saw people selling potatoes on a stand of maybe 3 potatoes. So that was, and still traveling by horse and buggy or a horse on a cart. That was interesting. And it was very, very run down, especially in Pskov. And then Moscow was interesting because it was so modern and gigantic. The biggest city I've ever been in my life. And we lived in New York City. This city was endless, north and south. It was just everywhere you went. And so the thing that blew me away there was just how modern it was and how also everybody owned their cars. There's no credit there. So you have to buy things with cash, which really was very interesting.
At the opening of this exhibition, you said several good things about your wife, Christy. What is the role in your life and artwork of your wife and your family?
Yeah, my wife is really my stability, you know. God is my stability, He's our stability, you know. But in terms of a flesh and blood accountability, life partner, friend, best friend, advocate, someone who understands me, someone who puts up with me, my wife, Christy, is the one that keeps me pretty much sane. And we grow together, and she's poured her life into raising our daughter. So she quit her job in New York City. She was very successful. She worked at a Town and Country magazine, and then for Lawn Cosmetics, and then just gave that up to raise the girls. So she's pretty much my hero.
Whom do you consider your teachers and why? Tell a little bit about them.
Yeah, well, my teachers, I have a teacher right now teaching me how to paint. His name's Joe Paquette. He's a local artist, but he's internationally acclaimed. He's a great painter, great thinker. But he's sharing with me the concepts of being a great painter and draftsman. So he's one. I've had high school teachers who are amazing that have helped me to think and to grow. I've had professional teachers, Ken Bald, who was best friends with Stan Lee, who created Spider-Man. And so he was my teacher. Kevin Sacco is another teacher of mine. Kevin Sacco is another teacher, a friend of mine, dear friend. He's older now, but these are friends that have helped me to grow as an artist. And then my daily friends as well.
And who are your favorite artists, and which of their art pieces you like most?
Yeah, well, you have Rembrandt, who's obviously my favorite artist, painter. He's unbelievable. I'm not exactly sure which painting it is. I could point to it, I just don't know the name of it. And then you have Gurу, who's unbelievable. I tend to be drawn towards the French painters. So you have Gurу, and you have Zorn is another great artist, and Andrew Wyeth is an American artist that's my absolute favorite. These are guys that blow me away, and they're on levels way above anybody else.
Okay, so this is your first one-man show, and this is awesome. It's big, a lot of art pieces. Could you walk us around and talk about most important art pieces presented here, which really reflect your concept of going along?
Right.
And what message did you want to send the people with your exhibition?
Yeah, yes, I can do that, yes. Yeah, so the theme of the show is, first of all, I'm very thankful for artistry and the people that have given me this huge ride, a huge display here, wonderfully presented. It's amazing. I'm honored. And so the theme of the show is they had me, what's your theme? And I'm like, you know what? Andrew Wyeth, who's a very famous world-renowned painter, said, I'll be going to my studio, and on my way to my studio, all of a sudden I'll see a horse's mane, a horse's hair stuck on a piece of barbed wire. And he's like, and I'm just gone for days. I look at it, I grab it, I draw it, I'm stuck. I'm just gone for days. And so these things moved him and they grabbed him. And so the show is representative of all the things that have moved me and grabbed me over the last 3 years, that as I'm going along, as I'm working on another job, or I'm watching TV, all of a sudden something pops into my mind, or I'm inspired by something, and I start drawing sharks, or I start drawing cowboys. So the whole idea, as I was going along, that's what this show is about. So this piece, this is one of my favorite pieces, and because I'm heavily inspired by Stan Lee and just the character that he is, I wanted to I saw this drawing of Stan Lee, I just saw it in my head, that I would draw Stan with this really big winding arm like Spider-Man, and Spider-Man does what he does. And so he created Spider-Man, and so I just sort of did a shout out, or you know, like, hey, this is you as Spider-Man, and that was the idea. And I drew it really big, and I started right here at the left eye, and then I moved my way over, and then filled up that side of the paper. But I did want the arm to be really long, but then I realized I ran out of space, and I then had to fit the hand into this image. So I started right here at the tip, and I worked my way down, and as it ended here, I connected the two and settled for a very big hand. But it still is one of my favorite pieces.
It is known that you prefer to paint in oil.
Right.
Why?
Well, Rembrandt painted in oils, so it has a history to it. But it also has a feel. It feels good to paint in oils, it's also it allows for mistakes. So this was in acrylics. This painting was in acrylics. When you put it down and you paint, you do a stroke, it dries. Oil paints, on the other hand, put it down, doesn't work, wipe it off. See, so it's very forgiving. This is what you see is what you get. But you can also paint quickly over top of things. In oils, it's a whole different mentality, a whole different approach, and a different type of thinking. And it's a lot more sophisticated, if that's a good word.
Yeah, so you don't paint in watercolors then at all, because you can't correct any mistakes.
Right, yeah, I did. I painted in watercolors when I was a kid. But it doesn't have the same weight necessarily that oil painting does. For some reason, it has this strange sort of lesser praise, but I don't believe that. I think there are painters that are amazing that paint in watercolors, that their work is just as worthy as an oil painting. But for some reason, sometimes there can be a disconnect, and people don't want to pay as much for a watercolor as they would an oil painting. But I don't agree with that. I think it's still worthy, but it's all about who the artist is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Illustrated for clients, did you have a chance to express your own vision of personal touch of a person whom you were painting for magazine cover, for example?
Right. So magazines, you're not free to just go off and do what you want and create the biggest nose on Woody Allen that you can. You have to be safe. You have to create a product that they're paying you for their readers. So the readers, their clients, the ones that are paying them to do the job, and then they're paying me to do my job. I can't be too freaky, too crazy. I have to paint according to boundaries. And so those are the things that happen when you work for a magazine. You have to paint according to what they want you to do.
And so what other tight constraints from the clients you encountered?
Right. There are obviously time constraints. You have hours to finish something, if not only one day. And the other thing is you have editors who have a say, and they can make you change it. They don't like the face, you have to change the face. They don't like the overall image after you spent 2 days on it. They don't run it. So there's these constraints. It's frustrating because you're pleasing all of these different people in a room, 20 of them in a room.
And how often did you have to redo your work due to your clients' remarks, unsatisfaction or something?
Right. It's rare that I had to redo something. One time I did a cover for Der Spiegel, and they never ran it. So it's not like I would redo it, but sometimes there can be heavy-duty revisions that would make something last a long time and sort of start tightening up on your neck because it's due in the morning, but they keep making changes.
So what urged you after 35 years of working for clients as illustrator to turn to pop culture work, dog imagery, blue line work?
Right. Fun, just to have fun. So if you're working for a client, you no longer are having as much fun. But when you can create what you want to create, things that you're passionate about, then your joy level is up here. Clients are down here. You're doing what you like to do, but here's what you love to do. So I wanted to do pop culture because I love caricature. I love caricature. It's very hard to do. It took me a long time to figure it out. And also oil painting. So I wanted to do both of those. That's what started me on the pop culture. And what started me on the blue line, the blue line drawings, was I just love drawing, and I think there's nothing above drawing. There's painting, but there's still something above painting. You still have to know how to draw. So drawing is here, and I want to get back to drawing all the time, as much as I can. And that's where I'm going to focus my time.
From what celebrities whom you painted, you heard an opinion about your work, and what was the opinion?
Right, so Paul McCartney saw the painting over here that we'll look at later, and he retweeted it. I sent it to Paul McCartney, his website, and so when he saw it, he retweeted it. I woke up in the morning and it said, "Paul McCartney mentioned you today on Twitter." I was like, what? And so sure enough, it was on his site. He put it on his website, and that was Paul McCartney. I've had other shout outs as well. Most recently I had a shout out from the lady Allison Wright. She's in a movie, a series called The Americans, and they're Russian spies. This is interesting. And so the show is a crazy show, but I'm drawing, and I'm drawing more, but I drew one of the main characters, and she gave me a shout out on Twitter. So that was interesting as well. So this piece here, this is Hillary, and this piece got me in a little bit of trouble, or it created a stir. People were upset by it, and my whole reason for doing this was Hillary was going to be running for political office, for president, and I decided to show her with a Napoleon-esque sort of move where he puts his hand in his jacket, and so that was the idea, and I played on her bubble butt, and this was heavily inspired by my favorite painter, Eng is his name, I-N-G-R-E-S. Can't remember how you say his name, but this is Eng. He's a famous painter. So that was how I did this one, and then with George, I decided to make fun of his cowboy leanings. And so this was more of a poke at George as opposed to a mean Hillary depiction. So, yeah. And then so the Trump painting was more just, not to be mean, but it's more just the character of Trump. He is a character, and he has the most bizarre hair that I still cannot figure it out, and I've drawn his head numerous times. So he has different layers, one layer going this way, one layer going this way, one layer going this way, another layer. So there's these different 4 layers of hair, and I'm just simply playing off of it. I'm also creating a shape and putting his body in a shape. And so as it worked as a triptych, it just felt good to do a triptych, which is a masterful concept, a master painting of showing something in 3s. And so that was a shout out to that, since it's painted in oils as well.
And did celebrities ever buy your pictures?
Yeah. Certain some celebrities have contacted me. John Glenn is an astronaut, was a very famous astronaut, and then I can't remember his name. Who's this? Yeah, Pat Boone is another guy. Naomi Judd. Robert Altman is a movie director. He directed. I can't think of what he directed, but Robert Altman was a big deal. He's a cool guy. He bought the painting, and a few others I just can't remember at this point. But yeah, it's super cool when that happens. Yeah, so the Paul McCartney piece is a shout out to Paul's brilliance and his genius. And so I just wanted to paint him with a sort of a tribute to the Abbey Road days when he was recording at Abbey Road. So I have a coffee cup on there. And this was very early on in my creating the pop culture series. If I did it now, I would paint maybe better. I'd draw better, maybe create it better, but I still love the piece. I think it's a cool piece. but there's just things I would probably do differently now. But it's definitely a shout out to McCartney and a sort of praise to Paul for being so cool. This piece, this is a piece that again, McCartney retweeted this, and it was very interesting. I just, again, wanted to show the power of Paul McCartney. And so it's a shout out, it's a sort of pointing out the idea, or the reality that Paul can do things to people. The Beatles messed with people in a way that, like, they cried and they flipped out and they just shook. And that's what this is. It's just this whole, oh, the power of Paul. That's really like the subtitle of this. So it's really Beatlemania. That's what it is. And the fact that it's black and white scared a lot of people. They were like, what's scary? It's black and white. It's just the way that back in the day, there was color photos, but it really was very rare. Black and white was how things really lived in that day. Every magazine was black and white. So it's a shout out to that era. So this piece would be, again, just a sort of highlighting or pointing to John's greatness. And this is a photo that obviously existed of John. A hat was a very interesting photo. I love the photo. And I just did it as an underpainting. And sometimes an underpainting is really beautiful. Like there's a beautiful quality to underpaintings. And what this means is you only really use white and brown. That's it. And maybe a little black. That's it. But this painting all exists in the white and the brown, two tubes of paint. Third paint would be black. And so it's just a cool, it has a cool, really cool look to it. I love the way it looks and feels. And so that's John. And then this would be just some of the daily tools that I use, and you know, just the way that sketches, preliminary sketches, paint tubes, things that I use in my studio. And also sketchbooks with notes as I go study with great artists. And a sketch in there, my palette here, my paintbrushes, which I don't really take good care of, which I probably should. So that's pretty much what this display is all about. So this piece is sort of an acknowledgement of Pee Wee Herman's brilliance. So he's brilliant. He's separated himself from all the other comedians and created a character like nobody's ever seen before. And I'm a huge fan of Pee Wee Herman. I think he's hilarious. Not everybody does, but he's hilarious. So this here was just really a sort of a piece that I assembled. I want to draw Pee Wee. How do you put him? What do you do? What image do you make? And I found this hilarious face of Pee Wee. And it was a very tiny picture, but it was so perfect. I tried to buy that picture off the artist. It was going to cost me $1,000. And I didn't want to spend $1,000, so I had other pictures that I worked from, but then I knew I was going to put them into a Mona Lisa sort of setting, and then at that point I sort of punched up his breasts and made them rather grotesque, and gave a shout out to the different types of feel of Mona Lisa, pushed a few things, exaggerated a few things, and that's how the piece came to be with Pee Wee. This piece, again, it's a sort of a shout out. What I mean by shout out is I'm just yelling loud, look how great these guys are. That's what this is. And so my friend who saw this piece said if he was Paul Simon, he would buy this piece and burn it so no one ever saw it again. Because it really gives a shout out to Garfunkel, Art Garfunkel, and how great he is. And Art Garfunkel's always been in the shadow of Paul Simon. But I just wanted to reverse the roles and show really how great Garfunkel is really great. And so that's the gist of this. This was actually the very first painting that I did of the whole pop culture series. And it was actually underneath this painting is a very failed painting. So I painted over top of it. So yeah, if you ever want to know what's underneath it, just start scratching away and you'll see that there's a very bad painting. So this painting is Cher, and again, obviously an icon, someone that's ascended above mere celebrity. So there's celebrities, and then there's celebrities. There are famous people. So that's really what icon is. They're iconic. They're in a level where no one really is. And so she's definitely risen to that level. My friend loves her, so I decided to sort of pay tribute to her and her beauty and the way that she is, and sort of put her in the light of sort of a mother, the Mother Mary. I'm not saying she's holy and perfect. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is she's beautiful, and there's a reverence about her. That's the idea. And so it's one of my favorite paintings. I really love this. I gave a little, put some little palm trees in there, put her in the Cali setting here with her little like the beautiful landscape of Cali, and overall it's a dark, mysterious painting. You know, this was heavily inspired by my favorite painter, Ang, for sure. So this painting is the Rat Pack. It is sort of a shout out or a tribute to the iconic status that these guys rose up to, especially in Vegas, all over the world, especially America. They were gigantic, and they were slap happy. They were some of them were arrogant, I think, and I think it's a tricky thing to ascend to this level of fame and notoriety and not let that mess with you a bit. And so, in spite of their brokenness or whatever, they still help people be happy and to contribute to people's happiness, and people love them. And so that's all this was. It was just a sort of a shout out to what these guys did, the joy. So there's a joy, happy, sort of slap happy moment about this piece. That's really what it is, because that's kind of what it gave people, a place to escape to from their daily lives. Yeah, so Prince was the very last painting that I did in the Pop Culture series. He's obviously an icon. He was still alive when I had done this painting, and it was just a tribute to his greatness, and the fact that he's in Minnesota was cool. My friend who loves Cher absolutely loves Prince as well. So this was just really a tribute to who he is, and then painting it in purple was really a no-brainer. It's just like, yes, of course, purple, yes. Sometimes color's not important. There's a power to the piece, let's say, or something that doesn't need color. But purple was the right move for this. So this is Prince. Fantastic Day is a shout out to the crazy, crazy world of dogs, and so my dog creations fit under categories called Thomas Fluharty's Mad World of Dogs, and so I draw dogs all the time, and I love dogs. I have a dog. So this is just the subtitle is an epic celebration of all things doggery. It's just this crazy painting, sort of reflective of the ascension of Christ, where you have a heroic figure coming down out of the skies, and everybody's just celebrating and going nuts, and it's just a huge celebration of the crazy world of dogs. But I just saw this thing massively, and I created it. It took about a year to draw it, think it, and design it, and then about 2 months to solidly paint it. So my dogs, as I create a dog and draw a dog, I want to give a shout out, or I want to highlight the Chihuahua family. And I want people that love Chihuahuas to follow me. So it's a huge following of Chihuahuas. So I create a Chihuahua, but I don't just draw them just as a Chihuahua, like looking down on him. I want to create him as with human qualities. So I put a jacket on him. I also put our eye level low, looking straight into his eyes, so that he's looking right at you, and it creates a sense of warmth and enjoyment and being sort of moved by this creature that's looking at you straight at your eyes. Usually the dogs are down, but this way they're straight on. This would be an example of me giving a sort of a shout out or highlighting the idea or making fun of the way dogs sleep. So there's a story there. These dogs are hilarious, they're crazy, and they really do sleep this way. All of a sudden your dog is leaning on something or laying on something, and this is just more plain making fun of the world of dogs as they sleep. And so this would be an example where I want to do a pug. I want to paint a pug. I want to draw a pug. But as opposed to just doing a pug that everybody's seen, I have the idea that he would be spoofing or playing off of the John Belushi, I can't think of what it was, there was a movie John Belushi, the famous comedian, was in. And so I decided to dress him in aviator gear, and as opposed to putting a cigar in his mouth, I put a bone. And so I just really love this image. This was one of the first images that I made and created, and it's still one of my favorite images. And then this would be where I'm tapping into the French bulldog world, and the making a little bit of fun of the craziness of these characters with the sort of half shut eyes looking at you like he's maybe drunk or something, but it's a different way to create a portrait. Yeah. So this is my landscape studies, my direction. So to learn landscapes, I've went and studied with a very prominent landscape painter, and I've been getting schooled by him and trained. And so these are studies, things that I'm building and working on. I'm not known as a landscape painter. I'm not trying to be a landscape painter. I'm not believing I'm a landscape painter. But what I am doing is I'm studying, and I want to get good at this genre, this area of painting. It's a whole different world than drawing dogs. A lot of times you have to do something thousands of times. So you have to draw 1,000 dogs before they get awesome. I've done maybe 150, maybe 100 landscapes, but I need to do 1,000 or 10,000 before they really feel that they're legit.
Tell us a little bit more about Intervyu Blue Series. It's pencil, right?
Yes,
and
right.
you love oil.
Yeah.
So how did you come to the idea to draw in pencil?
Right. So the blue drawings, they exist because I love drawing. So I love oil painting, but what I really love the most is drawing. And so one day I was leaving my studio, I found a blue little pencil inside of the bottom of a box. I grabbed it, did a line, and said, that looks really cool. And so I started just drawing, and I drew Hellboy, which is a character. I drew Hellboy, and then I just posted it. It got a lot of response, and then I just started discovering drawing again, and I just drew, and I've been drawing every day in this style, and I'm just never tired of it. It's a discovery of drawing and an advancement in drawing every day that I do it. And the other thing is there's no erasing. You can't erase, and you have to design it on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So there's a certain discipline involved. It's not like you just draw it and whatever happens, happens. You have to put this on a very small piece, no erasing. So it really has helped me to draw in a more accurate way. The Maestro Series started one day where I just saw these guys. They're wild looking, they're big, and they're old, and there's these things to grab hold of as an artist. I want to draw that. So a beautiful face, there's no lines. A beautiful lady, I can't make fun of that or grab hold of that. But when you get a fat old guy with a big nose and gnarly hands, all of a sudden that's something to draw. That's something to grab hold of. And so that started this whole series. I did this one, then I think I did this one, and then I did this one, and so I started drawing this one, but I wasn't done with this one yet, but all of a sudden I said, oh, look at this one, and then I start drawing that one, and then I go back and finish this one, and then I draw this one, and then I post them, and people go, dude, I love these series, these maestros are crazy, and so people have bought them, and they want to buy them, and so it's super cool, so it keeps fueling me on, and then I did this one, and so it just this joy. That's why the book, I have this new book coming out, it's just called The Joy of Drawing, because drawing is cool. It's like you can just draw and forget your problems. Not that you want to just forget your problems by drawing, but it is something that we do that really makes us go, wow, I want to do that more. And so these are the things that I'm doing a lot, and so I just keep coming back to drawing. And so this was a drawing that I did on a bigger piece of paper. And I thought Mick's face is so cool. It's so broken and cut up, and there's all these things about his face that are super cool. And so these are the things that I just give my attention to.
And what inspired you to create the portrait of Mother Teresa and art on biblical series?
Right, so Mother Teresa and the Jesus drawings, these are birthed out of not pushing something so far that it's funny. This is more representational, more care. Not that the other ones I don't have care on added in, but these are gentle. These are eggs. They're fragile, and they mean way more than a conductor for me, because they're pouring their lives into something that's selfless. A musician or a maestro doesn't mean he's selfish. It just means that when I look at what Mother Teresa is serving the poor, and my daughter is serving the orphans of Bolivia, these are things that touch me more deeply. And especially with the Jesus drawings, this drawing happened more out of a sort of a depressing fog. I felt very depressed one morning, and I felt like I needed to look at something worthy, something glorious. And so I looked at Bouguereau's drawings, and he did this painting of Jesus, and I just drew it. And as I drew it, I actually cried, and I felt like as I drew the Savior, he drew me to himself.
Perfect.
So the magazine work, it's also called editorial. It is a type of work where you get a phone call and you draw for the client. You draw for a magazine. So Mad Magazine had always been my dream, and I had done, at this point I hadn't really done anything. This was my first big break. I showed them my work, they rejected it. I went back 2 years later, showed them my work again, and then I got the cover. And then when that happened, everything changed for me. I started doing caricatures, and then I showed my work to the New York Times, and then the New York Times called me, and then after the New York Times called me and my piece ran in the New York Times, it opened up all these other doors. And so pretty soon I was working for all the magazines in the world pretty much. And then Der Spiegel gave me the cover, and that takes me to a European audience. And so just this sort of this, it's like a ride, like a roller coaster, or you get a ride in a car down the road. These magazines give you a ride. They take you somewhere. They broadcast you. And so that's really what it is. And so then over the last number of years, this has just been how I've spent the last 30 years pretty much. Actually the last 22, constantly doing editorial work. And then Time Magazine called me and gave me 12 hours to do that cover. And that was a crazy thing that happened too. And then they ended up putting that in the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. in their permanent collection. So it's just these things that sort of start getting added onto your bio that have happened to you as an artist. And again, a lot of it's hard work, a lot of it's networking, knowing who you know. And I mean, I think God has been very good to me. That's another reason why things have happened for me. But it's just hard work. A lot of it's hard work and studying with good people. So I really have enjoyed my opportunities with working for all the different magazines. Yeah.
And are you going to get back to this work, or you are done and no way back?
Yeah. No, if somebody calls me, I'll work for editorial. I mean, they're going to pay me. I'm not, if it's fun and they're going to pay me for a couple of days to do a cover, absolutely, I'll do that. I'm not actively pursuing it. I'm not sending my work to covers of magazines and saying, hey, what do you think? I might get ready to do that with some of my drawings, but now I'm doing these blue line drawings. I want to get a specific type of work, not just a cover. I want to get a specific type of work.
What is more interesting to you, to teach drawing and painting, or to create your own artwork?
Well, obviously, drawing and creating is more important. But if I say it's not important to teach, that's not true, because then you're belittling people, or you're not putting an importance on people. So they're just different. They're different excitements. So I'm totally excited to learn how to draw better, and I'm also equally as excited to engage and to help and to help people to grow. And so I love teaching because it's sort of wired into who I am.
Did you ever have international students whom you taught online with schoolism.com site?
Yeah. So Schoolism is a really cool school. It's online, and it's with animators and artists from all over the world. So people that have worked for Pixar, DreamWorks, designing Shrek. I have 2 classes on there, and anybody from the world can just tap into Schoolism and watch our videos, but also pay more money to study with us and get critique and feedback. So I have students from Bolivia, India, Russia, Germany, Brazil, my goodness, Mexico. In other words, online, you know, it's a universal reality, you know.
And what else do you like to do except painting and drawing? What other interests in your life?
Right. Hanging out with my family is a great deal. Family and friends are big, you know. Being with my wife, my daughters are now grown up and moved away, so being with my daughters, you know what I mean? Anytime we can get together, it's super cool. Obviously, you know, Jesus, you know, God is our life, you know. We being together with our dear friends who God has changed their life. We love this rhythm of life between family, friends, and the work that we get to do. It's super cool.
What music, composers, musicians do you like?
Right. Well, my favorite musician is Sting. So I love Sting, and you know, the Police, and Sting inspires me pretty much every day. And then I love a lot of just obscure music on Spotify. You can find there's a lot of great music being made these days, and so I listen to obviously a lot of great classics of rock bands. So you have Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin is brilliant as well. I've listened to some of the more positive up Zeppelin stuff than the down druggy stuff, but there's some great music being done all around us. So and then I listen to classical music. I'll listen to you know, different you know, great musicians. And they're all over. So.
And what are your favorite movies?
Yeah.
Movie directors and actors.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I mean I love actors. We watch a lot of movies, and so you know, my favorite movie might be Gladiator. You know, it's an amazing story. Anything very story driven. I love The Incredibles, the animated feature. The Incredibles is amazing. There's a movie called Warrior, which is a battle of Tom Hardy and his brother Joel Edgerton, and they're fighting, and it's a crazy story. Things that just blow us away and break us up and make us cry and touch us emotionally. These are great movies, you know. So. Then we have movies and sitcoms that we watch and things like that. We watch Seinfeld. There's just so many. And you know, The Office is brilliant. There's just things that we watch, you know, online that are really brilliant.
What are your favorite writers, books, literary characters?
Right. So one of my favorite books is Seth Godin. So Godin, Seth, S-E-T-H, Godin. He's a genius marketer, but he's a genius thinker as well. So he wrote a book called Purple Cow, and it's a little book, but you can read it in 2 hours, and it's just brilliant. And it's about how to think as an artist and how to create and how to do something at a level that makes somebody say something about it, as opposed to mediocrity. So he's a great writer. He is really a great writer, and I'm really moved by a sort of a theologian named John Piper. I really love the things that he says and the way that John Piper talks. As I write now on mine, I'm always thinking about the way that he forms sentences and stuff. So they're just great writers that I just read that I'm inspired by.
And what is your attitude to sport? What sports competitions and athletes do you watch during Olympic Games and the World Championships?
Right. We're big sports fans. We love football. You know, when we watch the Olympics, my wife is a big swimmer. She loves swimming. She swam ever since she was a kid. So she schools me and helps me understand swimming. So we watch swimming, you know, we watch, especially in the Olympics, it's really like we appreciate excellence. We appreciate just how great somebody is. So it's not like there's only one sport that we love, but we love them all. I've started playing squash in the last few years. I love squash. I played racquetball for a long time. I played baseball as a kid. So yeah, but between squash and racquetball, those are the areas that I probably need to get back to and start working out. You know, and gymnastics as well. My daughters were huge gymnasts, and they love gymnastics, and we really pay attention to gymnastics, especially in the Olympics. We just sit down and watch gymnastics all evening.
And who of celebrities you can call your friends?
Celebrities I can call my friends. That's interesting. Michael Ramirez is a very, very well-known guy, and he's an editorial artist. I think he's a celebrity, but he's a very famous guy that I love. I have a lot of famous artist friends that are very famous in the art world, somebody else is slipping my. Oh, I know a dude named Nate Zerker. He's in a band called Jude and the Lion. We're friends with him, my family. But it's cool to see my friends succeeding at national levels where people appreciate what they're doing. But most of my friends are artists, and they're famous in the art world, but they're not necessarily a household name. But I'm really blessed to be able to call some of these guys my friends.
And what does your regular day consist of? How do you start, and what do you do during the day? Just daily routine. Yeah. So my day right now, what it looks like is I try to get up early. It depends on what time I go to bed. I'm trying to get 6-7 hours of sleep a night for sure. And I wake up, I meet with God, have a quiet time, drink some coffee, pray for my family, and then I go into my studio and draw. And try to draw without any distractions from social media. I don't pay attention to emails and anything, but I try to give my clarity of my brain, which is I think at the best time of the day, my fresh brain to draw and create. And so if I don't have a pressing job pressing on me for deadlines, I draw. And then once I draw, if I post it online, and then I move on to the next part of my day, and I'm drawing or responding to people or doing a job that's necessary that needs to be done, or I'm shipping something out. It's really a pretty cool rhythm right now. I'm trying to stay away from stress. I try not to put myself in any stressful situations. And so it's been a real blast as of late, yeah. And how do you prefer to spend your free time? Weekends, vacations, if any?
Yeah. Well, we spend time together, my wife and I. Now that my girls are grown up, everybody's grown up and left, we either try to go spend time with them, spend time around the house, maybe we watch some TV, one of our favorite shows, but also we're starting to travel. And so we're sort of starting to plan that she and I are going to be going to a lot of different places. So we're getting ready to go to Paris for 2 weeks. That's going to be cool, happening in September. And then we have other places to travel with some business things that are starting to happen. So it's super, super cool. That's how we're spending our time.
And what is your favorite food?
My favorite food? That's a really good question. Favorite food, it's probably stir-fried vegetables with linguine and my favorite sauce on it, you know, like that's a great meal. My wife makes amazing meals, so we'll make salmon and potatoes and broccoli with my favorite sauce. That's super cool. I love pizza. There's some really cool pizza places that we go to here. There's a place called Big River Pizza down in St. Paul, which is super cool. And we have Pizza and Pasta, which we go to here with local chains, but it's cool, yeah. So we're big food fans, and when we go to New York City, we go to our favorite places there, get bagels at Pinnacle's Bagels on the Square, and then Ben's Pizzeria. So we love eating at these places.